Hello everyone and welcome back to the NPC Dungeon. This story is from a campaign that I've told stories from before on this channel. It follows Cleo, Gum the Ooze, V the Drow Rogue, and Lila the Drow Bard as they rob a train. It takes place after the first one I told of them, where they search for Copper, the Dwarf of Contact, who sent them on this quest, and before the most recent one where they break into a mansion. I'll leave a link and a card to the playlist these videos are on, but with all that out of the way, let's move on to the story. So what happened? First, a little bit of a recap. My players, each by one means or another, heard talk of a job to rob a train. All they had to do was meet up with the dwarf going by the alias Copper in the abandoned Conquest Industrial Park in the underground city of Volgoldir that this campaign takes place in. They arrived, but there's no sign of Copper. After doing some detective work, they eventually came across him being held in a dome made entirely of rubble, held by a swarm of insects. They rescued him and found a young elf named Althea who decided to tag along with them. They followed Copper to the rundown shed he'd been living in and discussed the details of the job, and this is where we begin. Copper explained to them that this train was attached magically to a single rail high above the city, so I suppose it was more of a monorail, and it delivered ore from a mine that his family used to operate before it was taken from them. He wanted my players to see what was going on by breaking in and seeing what the train was really transporting. From him, they learned that this train had several spurs where it could change direction, one of which leading into a dead-end cave where construction had begun many years ago for a new track of this train, but was simply never finished. They also learned that every 100 feet or so there was a sentry tower that holds a flying automaton that will be released upon detection of any and all intruders, and he ended off by saying that if they could send a message with collateral damage, he would increase the reward. After agreeing on payment, my players headed off to plan. They spent the day discussing their next moves in V's apartment, and headed out late that night like a bunch of rebellious teenagers to one of the towers the spurs were attached to. They switched the lever leading into the dead end, and then had Gum smash the controls. They also headed off to the actual dead end and had Gum smash up the rail there, hoping that it would cause the train to crash upon entry. The only person on it would be the conductor, so they didn't have too many casualties to worry about. And the next morning they headed out bright and early for the dead end and waited. Something was wrong. They waited, but it still wasn't there yet. Cleo sent out her bird to go look while Gum jumped up and impulsively ran along the rail toward it, apparently forgetting about the automaton sentries. By the time V and Lila came to help, Cleo's bird had come back. Finding that the train was coming, it had just stopped after noticing the first bird had been tripped, but it was coming, and it was coming from them at full speed. Lila cast her thunderwave of the approaching automaton, strumming at her guitar as another robot came flying at them. V jumped up, grabbing on it as it carried her around, trying to shake her away, and Cleo hopped onto the moving train, noticing a much larger automaton being released from a nearby tower. She hurled a bomb that she had recently bought toward the tower and detonated it as it collided with a metallic surface. Metal screeched as it collapsed, crushing the robot and keeping it at bay. With Gum's help, they finished off the last of the robots as the train came careening in. Cleo looked around, seeing that Althea was nowhere in sight as V finally gained control of the robot she was now piloting and gave Lila a lift up to the top of the train. Gum hopped into their bag of holding as the train rushed forward and collided with it. It opened up as Gum slid out and into the train. It stopped suddenly as it met the rough surface Gum had smashed up the night before, killing the conductor and injuring the party. After regaining their bearings, they searched the train, finding metallic structures built up like giant wire frames which Gum destroyed to bring back as evidence. Yeah, if you haven't figured it out yet, Gum was a barbarian. Anyway, they also discovered several crates carrying weapons as well. And as if this wasn't enough, they also stumbled across Althea as she was standing in one of the cars next to a tied-up figure on the ground. He was the one who'd attacked the party when the players first met. But what was he doing here? After interrogating him, the party still had one more goal: to send a message just as Copper had asked. So Cleo took the remainder of her bombs, set them on the rail behind the train, and blew it up, breaking the railing apart and allowing the train to plummet below, crashing down onto an empty patch of cave ground far beneath them. And that's it for this week. I really hope you enjoyed it, and I really hope I did it justice. As always, feel free to check out this week's other video where I talk about running large-scale encounters, and come back next week where I'll talk about splitting the party and how to handle it as a DM, and where I'll talk about Screech again. He was a character that I played a little while back. Thanks again for watching. As always, feel free to check out the 2 videos appearing on your screen right about now, and until next time, let's learn something.